Welcome everybody back to the show. I'm super excited today. I have had this on the calendar literally for about a month, and now I get to share everything with you. So today, Leslie Venetz, the founder of Sales-Led GTM Agency. She is a sales voice on LinkedIn. She's a keynote speaker. She's an advocate for some great groups, and truly, what I found so far, just a genuine great person. So, Leslie, thank you for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here. So excited for this conversation.
I am like I'm naturally smiling, right? And I, for me from the Northeast, I don't smile. I'm like, oh, not like work, right? So I'm really excited for this. And I did. I mean, I'm going through all your stuff on LinkedIn, and I tell everybody this on the show here. I can go through someone's LinkedIn like a professional stalker, and I can literally just understand kind of your transitions and what's out there and what's important to you and what you're mentioning. And yours is so cool because I can see that I went back to when you and in your career, I think it's a good place for us to start. You started sales at the big corporation, then you went to the really, really small, and now we're into your own thing, right? So I'd love for you to tell and just share that, kind of that road you took to where we came from, one of, in the office with 30 offices to, hey, I'm 2 years into my own thing.
Yeah. Gosh, it has. It's been an evolution. And it's funny talking about evolution in the terms of content creation, because I recently got the very threatening message from Apple that's like, your iCloud's full. Like, I don't know, maybe they're gonna like explode my phone if I don't delete things to make more space. And so I had to go in the way, way back machine to delete
Mm.
old content and videos that I'd made. They're so cringy.
Oh.
It's funny to see, like, we all sort of start somewhere, right? And maybe it's not the best work we've ever done, but we learn, we grow, we find our voice, we evolve, and now I like to think I'm pretty good at it. But it's funny, yeah, it's funny you mentioned kind of going deep into the LinkedIn. Yeah, so evolution. I did in fact start my like corporate sales career at a pretty large company, like 5,000 plus employees, 30 some offices globally. And I stayed for a really long time, which that's a different topic for another podcast. But staying at a company for 8 years out of college is one of the biggest mistakes that I made with my career, in my opinion. But I liked it. Like I liked it. It was still pretty siloed. So there was enough autonomy, but you got to work with different people from different countries. And I got to sell a ton of different types of products to a ton of different personas. And then I went to another company after that that was a branding agency. But immediately after that, I agreed to join a bootstrap startup as employee number one. And my gosh, I thought that I knew what it meant to like work in an environment with some ambiguity and an environment that was really like pull yourself up by your bootstraps environment. And Dave, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I agreed to be employee number one at a startup.
Yes.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I think the really positive that came out of that is it was not sustainable for me. I was working probably 80, 100-hour weeks
Yep.
to like learn the things and do the work that was required to get the outcomes that I wanted and needed.
Mhm.
Uh, but it really leapfrogged both my career, because like if you're working 80, 100-hour week, I mean, I was working like 2.5 jobs pretty much. So I
Mhm.
learned a lot in terms of skill sets in a short amount of time, but I also learned a lot about myself and my capabilities to create an MVP, to run a GTM successfully from the ground up. And that's actually what gave me the idea to start my company. I was not called to entrepreneurship. I never ever anticipated I would do it full time, but I sort of just like maybe naively, or maybe I was like a little bit cocky, that I was like, I mean, if I can create an MVP and like make this product a revenue generating product, I mean, I closed 21 customers in 9 months after a go live. It's like, if I can do this for somebody else in a very saturated market, I could probably do it for myself. I might as well spin up an LLC and just dabble with it to see what happens. And, fast forward, what, six years later, I did it as a like passion project side hustle. And then the universe gave me a bit of a two-hand push and said, it's time to explore full-time entrepreneurship. And now I've been doing that for a little over 2 years.
2 years. I mean, so I've asked other people this, and I think it's different for everybody. So I'm ready to hear it. Day one, you put 2 weeks notice in, okay, like here's the computer, here's everything back, say goodbyes. And you wake up on day one and it's you.
Yeah.
Like, what did
Day
that feel
one.
like?
So I worked for a really, I think, incredible organization. Like my last job was a really good job. I would say the best job I ever had. It wasn't the right job for me. It was the
Mhm.
classic story, right? We got a PE backed and then acquired. It was kind of a shit show. So it was a good company, but it ended up not being the right job for me. So I was able to leave that job on really, really good terms, which I do think that made the transition into entrepreneurship easier because I wasn't like fleeing from a toxic environment. They told me to keep my laptop. And I already had a second laptop that I had been trying to return to them. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to be responsible for recycling these two brick laptops. And so I shipped them back. I wasn't keeping it. So maybe that's what I did on day one. But I had decided I was going to leave the job in November,
Okay,
but I'm no fool. I stayed to get that accelerator check and close out end of year.
sure,
So I waited until I got my accelerator check in Jan, waited till it cleared. And then I put a notice, and I was in a sales leadership position, and it was a British company. So like a month notice is
sure.
pretty standard. So I had a nice, easy transition out. And then I took 2 months off.
Really?
So the first thing I did in my journey into full-time entrepreneurship was give myself space, which maybe isn't the most traditional choice to make. I had a couple existing customers that I was serving, but besides that, I wasn't trying to spin up any new projects. I wasn't
Hmm.
like building a website or like doing
Hmm.
all the things that you do to set the foundations for success.
Hmm.
I just gave myself time to take a deep breath, to think about what I wanted the company to be, not like the minutia, Dave, not like who do I want to sell to or what I want to sell, but like what do I want this to mean to me? Like why am
Right.
I doing this? And like I think also a really important reason that I took that time was I'd worked for a really, really, really long time with no breaks, right? Like since high school, I'd worked with no breaks. I worked multiple jobs to put myself through college. I finished college and I immediately went into the workplace. Like I worked through summer break, I worked through spring break. I went from one job to another with no breaks. And I felt like I just needed time to kind of find myself again. And then while I was finding myself, that's the piece where I was like, okay, here's who I am, and then here's what I need to do to create this like next version of myself that is business owner, founder, entrepreneur.
Was there a mindset shift? Was there a is there something that happens in your mind that, okay, it's my company now, now I can do this, and it's a different feeling and a source of pride, and it's like all these different emotions start coming up when it's not your name and the word founder right here on LinkedIn, right? Is Was there a different mindset after that 2 months, after you take, which I'm so jealous of, by the way? I want to take that now, right? Like I want to literally take that now and find a way to do that. I don't think my wife will let me. She's like, no, no. If I'm working, you're working. But But either way,
Yeah.
was there was there a mind shift in terms of, okay, now I'm the founder?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There was a big mindset shift, Dave. I would say it was maybe twofold. I think one was a mindset shift around like trying to figure out what habits from my job as a like sales individual contributor and then a sales leader were going to continue to serve me as an entrepreneur and which weren't. And some of the things I was surprised, like surprised to find out were habits that didn't serve me. I would say a big one was detaching from that, like you need to close every deal, because that's very much the mentality as a seller, as a sales leader, right? Like here's your territory. Your job
Mhm.
is to penetrate the territory as fully as possible to close as many deals as possible. And I really struggled in year one because I don't think I fully grasped that it was now my responsibility as a owner of my own company to say no. It wasn't about closing every deal that came, like doing my best to close every single opportunity that hit my desk. It was my responsibility to actually say, this is not the right type of deal for me to work or serve, or you're not the type of person I want to work with, or you're not the type of company I want to affiliate with. So that was a really tough mindset switch for me in terms of habits. And I would say the other one on the habit side was like busyness for the sake of busyness. The whole reason I decided to become an entrepreneur was to have more freedom and to have more flexibility. And then faced with all that freedom and all that flexibility, I was just like plagued with guilt. I felt so guilty about taking time off. I work a 4-day work week. And I felt this tremendous amount of guilt about spending Mondays doing like self work and strategic work instead of strictly like revenue generating work. When it was like a Thursday and it was 3 p.m. and I'd done everything that I needed to do, I felt just this like insane guilt about closing my laptop and like going for it was crazy. I
Right.
honestly think in year one that was probably the most difficult mindset shift, is that I don't have to work for the sake of working. Like nobody's monitoring me. Nobody cares if I put in my 40 hours. I don't have to be focused on I don't have to show my math. I just get to be 100% focused on delivering the right results. So those were two really big transitions for me.
I want to dive into both. Let's go. I mean, heck, there's a fun. So we don't dub out here. We just, phone rings, daughter walks in, whatever. We just
We
go.
roll with
We
it.
just roll. I mean, so from the clients, you have to generate revenue off the bat, right? So now we're at all right, you know, is it a matter of just vetting clients, like people that, I don't want to come in, like if I'm you and I'm thinking through this and tell me if I'm off base or not. I don't want to come in, do the sessions, provide my knowledge to you, consult with you, and just know you're not going to implement it. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, we all know, I can just see it, right? I can see it in your eyes. I can hear the discussions. This is either forced or it's just not well thought out. Are those the type of clients you're like, not right fit?
Yeah, yeah, that was a huge part of it. Um, and so like the way I looked at going into year one, first and foremost, I used my entire accelerator check as my runway. It was like a $90,000 check. So I had like a pretty
Sure.
tidy
Sure, sure,
runway,
sure.
which was insane blessing, because yes, I needed to generate revenue because I'm not just trying to like spend all my runway, and I needed to make sure that this was like a viable business model, that I
Right.
had made the right choice before, sooner rather than later. So there was pressure to generate revenue, but it wasn't such immense pressure that it was like, if I don't generate revenue, I can't pay my mortgage, like
Yeah,
pay,
yeah.
whatever it is. So I'll set that tone, because I think that one of the mistakes I see people making is that they will decide to flee maybe a toxic job, or they will just like get a great idea and they're like, I'm starting my company tomorrow, and they will do it without really thinking strategically about having at least like a 3-month runway, or having like some of the tech stack and foundations
Mhm.
established. And then it takes what could have been this amazing experience, and it takes what could have been like an idea that exploded, and it kind of makes it like non-viable. And then it's a few months later and they've like struggled and now had to like throw in the towel and are back to corporate. So try to give yourself a couple of months runway at least, folks. But one of the things I really wanted to do in year one was say yes to everything that excited me, and not niche down too quickly, because I'd never done this full time.
Mhm.
So like I didn't want to be like, this is the only type of work I do, and then miss discovering opportunities to do work that maybe I wasn't previously aware of. And a
Mhm.
huge part of that, like one of the things that came out of that was actually like just writing copy for companies
Mhm.
that I'd audited copy and I created processes and I'd done a lot of training, but I hadn't strictly done like deals where I just come in and create copy for you. And now that's like one
Mhm.
of my core offerings and I love it so much. So it was worth doing. But to your point, the other side of that was I can't risk saying yes to clients in year one who become a huge part of my portfolio, because I can only really serve maybe like
Right.
3 to 5 clients at a time,
Mhm.
who are either going to like not get it, where they like don't really understand the value of what they're buying.
Mhm.
So they're like, it doesn't matter how good what I deliver is, like they're going to be
Mhm.
like, I wanted something else or expected something else. Or they're doing it to like check a box, but they're not going to really use it or have like the true enablement or action behind it. Because if I say yes to those types of clients, I'll have the revenue, but I won't have the case studies or the referrals or the stories to tell. And then that will maybe get me through year one, but significantly compromise my ability to grow into year two. So I think balancing a lot of like competing narratives and competing priorities in year one, in terms of what I should say yes to, what I should say no to, how much business I should say yes to, and how soon. There was a lot of balls in the air.
That's it's interesting. I never thought of using year one to feed year two, right? In terms of case study knowledge and all that. So that's it's good for you. That's insightful. Okay. The feeling guilty part, I really want to ask here because I literally posted on this, and this will, the timing may be off of when people see it to this, but I literally posted yesterday and today, for that matter, is on PTO. So I took PTO this week and I posted today. My daughter said, "You took off." Now my daughter and wife are going on a little boondoggle to Florida, and I'm at home and taking. I was like, you know what?
You're
You
here
guys
talking to me
go.
and they're in Florida at the
I'm
beach.
right. Like you guys go. I'm gonna take some time. I want to get some stuff done. Just relax and just like just chill, right? Like not hectic. And she said, "You took time off?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "You never take time off," which is true.
Mm.
Like I still, it, your words were coming out, and I was like, "Yeah, that's me." Like I feel guilty now. Are you over that now? Have you gotten past that, or does it creep in still
Um,
sometimes? Of it's still there a little bit, right?
yeah, it is. It is still there a little bit, Dave, which is fair, right? Like as sellers, we have chosen a profession where there's like a real cost to taking time off, right? Like we cannot sell when we are not working. And if we cannot sell, we might not get the deals to get our quota, to get our commission accelerators. But like there is a real cost that makes it inherently unsafe
Mhm.
to take time off. And then I think that's doubled by the fact that selling is a profession that tends to be very rooted in like being on all the time. Like it's like there's very like one of the things I discovered is that I was like in a constant state of hyper arousal, and I was like addicted in a lot of ways to those dopamine hits of like constantly checking my Slack and checking my email and checking my LinkedIn and refreshing my DocuSign. Like like there was an element of, I don't know if addiction is exactly the right word, but for lack of a better word, like I was dopamine seeking. I was in that state of constant hyper arousal. And I did that for like 20 years. So am I recovering, maybe like mostly recovered from burnout? Yes. Like, am I actively rebuilding new neural pathways that are not those dopamine seeking pathways? Yes. But like in 2 years, have I like fixed myself? Absolutely not.
Yep.
No way, not even close.
No, I'm with you. Like, I mean, literally, my team makes fun of me, but I'm holding true. I have a day and a half to go, and they said you get on us, and I do. I make sure that when they're on PTO, I say go away. My thing is I'll
Yeah,
deactivate you off Slack if not, I'm gonna make sure you're not on Slack one way or the other. And
love that.
they literally said, okay, it's your turn. You're gone.
Mm,
Now we don't want to see you. Right. And I think it's fun. I mean, I think anybody, entrepreneur, AE, SDR, wherever you are in the sales cycle, I believe there is a piece of in this world where we're all connected. Now it's literally now you can always be connected as a sales professional, and that's not
yeah,
healthy. Like
no,
absolutely not healthy at all. And it's harder than
isn't.
ever to break that connection off and give yourself just grace and say, you know what, I may not make as much commission this month as I would. That's okay. I'll
Mm,
make it up. I'll do whatever. Or it's, hey, look, for 1 month, I'm going to have a week off and I'm going to make less commission, and that's it. That's okay. And I think it took me a while to come to grips with that, but I think now I'm literally am. I think that's how I believe, and maybe I'll change that. But I think from my standpoint, that's kind of what I see. So it's interesting. From you're in your
yeah,
you just complete.
yeah,
Sorry, go
it's a
ahead.
good mindset.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I
So
was just gonna say, like, I agree. I think that's a
yeah.
really powerful mindset, and it sounds like you're building a really healthy culture. And what's especially interesting is that it's all very backed by brain science,
Mm,
right? Like we run out of our store of like sort of willpower, our ability to make good, strong decisions. Like we get diminishing returns if we're just going and going and going. So it's all backed by brain science that like we should take breaks, that we should take time to like step back from sort of daily or weekly KPIs to be more strategic or be more thoughtful. And even though we know it, and even though we have the numbers and the data and the science to back it up, it is not, that has not historically been what a sales culture looks like. And for any of us that have been selling for more than, say, like 10 years, it's most certainly not like the mindset that our leaders have or the cultures we grew up in. So I think it's like a bit of a call to action to the sellers who have been around for more than a decade, who are maybe in sales leadership now, that like we do have some responsibility to acknowledge that it like actively does harm to ourselves and to our teams to not take breaks.
there it is. I say every episode, I always kind of hit the pause and I go, where's my 45-second clip that I'm really going to go? Now, I think the entrepreneurship of what you said from the runway and all that was great. That right there hits a chord with me because I'm, when people say, hey, Dave, what's your strength? I go, oh, work ethic's going to come to mind. Well, what's that really mean? Is it working hard from 8 to 5, or is it extending my hours when I shouldn't, to busy to be busy, or is it, not taking the PTO when I should? I mean, I tell folks some of my best ideas in the past, I don't know, a couple of years, I can really pinpoint it, has been on the porch with my feet up, like sipping on a cup of coffee, just thinking, and it just, it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I never would have had that idea sitting at a screen. Never. Never. And I think you posted, I don't know when it was, I saw it. You had a picture of the brain. Like the brain was like in different,
Yeah.
like the colors, right? And I'm not a science guy. My wife teaches fifth grade. There's no way I'm passing fifth grade science, I don't think. But you've said it a few times. It, I mean, it is, it's proven. At some point of time in the day, in the week, and however long, you just cannot keep the same intensity as you did at some point of time in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think like first and foremost, what you're describing, I think is the distinction between like hard work, which I will always advocate for hard work. I will always pride myself on hard work and toxic hustle culture, which is rooted in shame and which is rooted in like visible busyness versus like like rooted in activity versus results. But the post that you're referring to, it's a graphic from an article I read in the Harvard Business Review, which I'm also going to manifest this to everybody listening. It is my dream to be quoted in HBR. So if you know how to make that happen for me, right? You got to say it
anybody
out
out
loud.
there, that's
I'm sure
let's
anybody out
get
there,
let's get Leslie in the HBR. Okay, let's
right?
keep that going.
I've done the like success.com and the Wall Street Journal and etc. Now it's HBR is my next one. But that was brain scans just from people that had been on more than 90 minutes of back-to-back meetings. So it was like 30-minute stacked Zoom meetings in a row. It showed just this like wild decrease in the, I don't know what all the words are, but I think it was like prefrontal cortex activity, which is that ability to like be creative and like use empathy and use curiosity, that we're just dulling our brains by asking them to show up in a way that like we're not wired to show up.
That is, I mean, in today's world, right? When there is no, if you, I mean, I work from home, right? So before you were like, well, going from one meeting to the next meant you actually had to walk across campus or head down the hall or drive somewhere. There is none of that, right?
Yeah.
You can go like this, you can go like this, and it's, some point of time not healthy.
Yep.
So in year two, what did you learn? Like year one, you learned and you described to us the clients and who to accept and
Yeah.
and that. Okay. From year two, what did we learn? Like what did we learn in year two that you can now apply in year three?
Okay. Really interesting learning in year two is, so I niched down after year one, like that was the goal. And I did it in a way of like, these are the types of companies I want to work with, the types of founders or CROs I want to work with, and this is the type of work I want to be doing. And then I knew at the end of year two, I wanted to be like deeply niched down. And so I did that, right? At the end of year two, it was 15 to $50 million B2B SaaS professional, B2B professional services businesses, specifically doing 70+% of their revenue or aspiring to do 70+% of their revenue from outbound. That's like very specific. I felt so much scarcity mindset.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. And it's what I teach, right? Like I help founders and I help sales teams niche down their ICP and develop that specific value prop. And it was what I had been working towards. Like it was the goal. And then I got there where I had to say out loud, where I had to like update my website and update my LinkedIn headline to say yes to this very, very, very specific niche, which meant saying no
Hmm.
to everybody else. And I felt crazy scarcity mindset. So I think like one of my big learnings from year two was that you really have to continue to trust the process. And you have to have a process, maybe is a better way of saying it. Which is like one of my sound bites I say a lot with customers, that like if it's not repeatable, it's not scalable. But I got to the point where I had to like follow my own process and I was like, oh, I don't know.
Hey, it's cool for you. It's not cool for me, right?
I had to take my own advice and was like, this is hard. So that was a really like a learning in the fact that it was like validating, and it like helped me root deeper, and I think helped me gain more perspective and how to better have those conversations with customers. So that was a big one. And I would say another big learning in year two is like a really finding my own voice
Hmm.
in a way that I hadn't, like, and I've been posting on LinkedIn and TikTok for, for years already, but because I have the privilege of spending so much time thinking, right? Like I get to spend a lot of time learning and testing and digesting information and figuring out how to like repurpose it, or deciding whether or not it has fit for purpose for me or my clients. And I read so many more sales books because I have more time and capacity because I'm my own boss, that I think I am able to like distill my own thoughts, my own process, and my own methodology in a way that I have never been able to in the 20 years that I have been selling.
Hmm.
So that's really powerful. And maybe that's kind of like pulling forward the thread of just like having space. But yeah, I don't think I realized how superficial a lot of the way I described and taught things was. Not that I didn't know the rest of it, but I hadn't spent enough time like really thinking it out and getting that clarity and that depth of thought to be able to communicate it to somebody else in a way I was sure was going to stick. So that was like a surprise, a learning, and like certainly something I'm very proud of being able to better deliver as I go into year three.
That's awesome. I mean, look, you know what you learned and you can see it, right? You learned from year one, you've learned from year two. This is going to keep going. Now, I cannot let you go without talking about kind of what we talked about right before we hit the record button here. And that is obviously your book that you are writing, which is, I find, awesome. How far into it are you? Like, how much is it like a is it a are you a month into this writing? Are you into this? Like, where are you in the process?
Yeah, so the manuscript is set to be done by the end of August.
Oh, wow.
And that's like a fully edited manuscript. And then ETA for publishing December. So
Really?
we're into the process.
Really?
Uh,
Oh,
we have tens
man.
of thousands of words written. But so we were talking about this before we hit record, that it is such a humbling and like challenging and rewarding process. And if I think about a lot of what has allowed me to really like synthesize, crystallize my teachings and just like my personal philosophy, it is writing this book. Because it is one thing to do like a 30-second TikTok or even like a LinkedIn article, which is say like 3,000 words, and it is such a different thing to stack all those thoughts together and create a comprehensive chapter. And then to understand how that chapter fits together as a set of puzzle pieces with the rest of the chapter. And then to figure out how all of those chapters support the broader theme, and do it in a way that isn't just like a list of techniques, that do it in a way that I think makes it compelling for people. And so the book is tentative title is Earn the Right. Earn the Right's my sales methodology. And so the gist is that it's like stackable with like the MEDITs, the BANTs, the GAPs, et cetera. And it's like, ask yourself, what have I done to earn the right to ask this person to read this email, to meet with me, to buy from me, et cetera. And so really figuring out how every little bit of the sales process, from like leaving a voicemail to running a discovery call, fits into that theme of earning the right. And then how to make that, how to allow sellers and sales leaders to then see themselves in that vision Dave, it's a labor of love. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the experience and I can't wait to publish, but it's been a tremendous
I can't
effort.
wait to read it. Like, I mean, now, that's a holiday gift right there. That's it. I mean, that's a holiday gift.
That's what I was thinking with the timing. So I'm happy that we're same
Hey,
page there.
look,
I was thinking,
I,
okay,
I mean, just the way you talked about the voicemail to discovery to account management as you keep going, hopefully as part of it. If not, then I'm sure book two will cover, will that. Well, Leslie, look, this surpassed my it really did. I mean, I knew just by looking at all you've done with your collaborations and your master classes and everything. I knew there was a wealth. I had all the notes. We dove into this piece. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we did. My only ask is we come back and do this again. Let's do this in, like, after that book comes out. Let's talk about the book launch. Let's talk about whatever you're in for the journey. And I just hope we stay connected. I think your journey is awesome. So thank you.
thank you. That's so kind. And I would absolutely love that. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about things that we both love, like selling and how to sell better and how to lead sellers in a way that
Yeah.
levels up the entire
I'm getting the
profession.
book. I'm getting the book. I'm going to read it. You're going to come back. We'll come back February, March, and then I'm going to dive into the book, and you're going to give me like a tutorial on, hey, here's what really I meant on this chapter. That will be fun. And I got my first guest book for 2025. I'm so excited now. So there
It's
you
a
go.
deal.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That is it. A little bit long. I hope you took so much from this. I know I did. Leslie, thank you again. And we'll come back and do this. And to everybody, thanks for listening. Be safe. Take care.